getting ready for round number 2 of this, the Danish Esports Racing Championship, this time around at the venue of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I'm Connery Maddock, and I'm joined by Justin Prince as ever as we get set for the second round of the Danish Esports Racing Championship. In round 1, well, 2 races, both of them won by a Lasse. It's Lasse Bak and Lasse Sorensen taking the first 2 wins of the season, but wins number 3 and 4 are still very much a big question. Thank you very much to Hugo Luis, currently behind the scenes, Esteban Ballo for providing our track cameras for today's race. And Justin, if last time is anything to go by, then this race is going to be spectacular.
Indeed, lots of potential action, lots of potential passing zones, lots of potential drafting zones of the circuit, and as you can tell, 107 degrees Fahrenheit, the track temp, 42 degrees Celsius. It's going to be a slick one for heat number 1 today. And with these drivers also potentially having to deal with some of the wind, it could be turbulent in the corners. Should be an absolutely fun one here at this racetrack with the multiple drafting sections.
Absolutely. This circuit, basically a street circuit for all intents and purposes. Those walls do come up on you very quickly indeed. So less room for error here than at Monza, arguably. So drivers do have to be a bit careful when they're having these side-by-side battles.
Especially in angle sections such as turn number 1, the entrance to turn number 10 and 11 with Lopango, but also where the wall of champions is. So many drivers in the final chicane heading to the start and finish line have gotten into incidents by either tapping the wall or getting course cut penalties by taking the curves too sharply inside. These drivers are going to have to be very careful throughout this event today in the Ferrari 488 GT3s.
Absolutely. We got around about 8 minutes left of practice 1 here. You can see the schedule up on screen for you now. Qualifying 1, well, that will be 10 minutes, 2 laps for these drivers to get their fastest lap times in. Then race 1 at 20 past the hour. And then, of course, there's no results of race 1 set the grid for race 2 sorts of shenanigans here in this particular series. We will have a second qualifying session and a second race there. So that is going to be the state of play for things here this evening. And I really can't wait to get this one started. And you can see an interesting thing on the schedule here. The drivers and us, we don't know what races are coming up. That is announced in very short notice to the drivers, just to keep the drivers guessing and keep, adaptability being a factor.
Yes, indeed. In fact, the fans get to vote on that on the ESR Facebook page after each and every event. Already, 2 of the best drafting tracks already out of the rotation, meaning you still have more challenging circuits with a lot of technical corners, such as, say, Bathurst, with its chance of attrition, especially in the mountain section, that could be up amongst the scheduled races throughout the upcoming rounds. There's still chances of absolute calamity in some of these races, but today, it's going to be a fun one at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Speaking of absolute calamity, though, it was the end of race 2, I believe, in the first round of the season that really was quite controversial. And actually, we've had some post-race penalties be applied for that situation. As Lasse Sorensen, he did come away with the race win, but he's been hit by with a 15-point penalty in the championship standings, thanks to a little bit of a block that happens during the race. So, he's able to get maximum points for winning the race, but it ends up not being the case once the stewards are done with their job.
Yeah, so penalties do come into play with some of these races. We also seen Lauritsen get a 15-point penalty in heat race number 1. We also seen, in heat race number 2, we also seen Deli Jankovic getting a 15-point penalty as well. Other than that, Fairly Queen Racing, some interesting moments to say the very least, including a car scaring a bunch of drivers into the first chicane by going backwards after getting turned into the entry. But today it's going to be, again, as you mentioned, very close Armco barriers around this racetrack, not a lot of runoff space in the majority of the corners. If you hit the wall, there's a chance you can bounce back into the racing line. So you have to be careful to make sure you don't hit those walls, destroy your race car, and risk collecting others in the process.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. You know, not a lot of room to work with here at the circuit. Riding on board, at least briefly there, with Lasse Beck, who's currently provisionally fastest here in practice. So pulling up those decent lap times. But you know, things can and very much will change when things come to qualifying here, as these guys have already had around about 25 minutes to familiarize themselves with the track conditions. But for Lasse Beck, with lap times like that, it seems to be going very well for him, and it's important to establish that sort of momentum here early on in a championship fight. You know, with that race win last time out, he's really put himself in contention here in these early stages. He just needs those consistent results.
Indeed, and I think as well the consistent starting position, because as we've seen, track position is very crucial in these races. Just 25 minutes on the clock, that's not a lot of time to work with, especially with the lap times being just above 90 seconds a circuit, 93 seconds to be precise if you're one of the top drivers. The pace average about a minute 33 seconds a lap. The slowest drivers in the 134s. Just a 1.5 second difference from the top of the pylon to the bottom.
Yeah, very close round of things indeed, as Beck has a 1.5 tenth of a second advantage here in the practice session. But you know, when it comes to the racing here, it will be close quarters. There will be action all over the place. So, you know, qualifying definitely very important. Maybe just to miss most of the mid-pack carnage that might just happen. You know, especially when everyone is still in close proximity in the lap times.
Exactly. We've seen a little bit of that off and on at Monza for round number 1. And you also don't want to have to cut your way through the traffic with that minimal time. So you want to make sure you get that good track position. It's also crucial to remember, though, that the starts here at this track can be fairly crazy. It's a very short run into turn 1 and 2 to Virage Senna, where you end up having to hit the brakes quickly after smashing the gas, then have to take basically a quick left, then a right-handed chicane before getting back on the gas. There's a couple different risks in that area where, 1, you have the risk of drivers outbraking themselves, 2, the drivers who lose traction into turn number 2, and 3, the drivers that lose traction coming out of the set corner before they rush their way towards the chicanes of 3 and 4. So for guys like Alexander Ritson, it's going to be crucial to try and stay out of that trouble early and pull away early from the carnage.
Yeah, absolutely. As right now, you can see the rest of the standings. It's Mikael Gard in P2 right now in practice. Martin Christiansen is the third place driver. But, you know, you've only got about 2.5 minutes left of practice here, so there's not really much you can do in the grand scheme of things here, apart from just get yourself mentally set for that qualifying session. Of course, it's kind of relatively standard iRacing qualifying here, at least in terms of how official racing series go, with the 2 flying laps here. But, you know, especially at a circuit like this, where even the 0-act contact with the wall will invalidate your lap, that's going to be still a very, very tricky one to get through clean.
Yeah, there's a lot of chances, too, of slowdown penalties or off tracks here at this racetrack, as mentioned a little bit, especially in turns 13, 14. As you look on board with Sylvestre right now, the Ronin SimSport machine, this chicane coming up here, the final chicane to the Wall of Champions, is the biggest place where you can risk it, because a lot of drivers like to go over those white rumble strips and chicanes. It can either do one of two things. Do what it did there, hit himself into the Wall of Champions, damage the right front, or there's a chance you end up going off track and cutting the course just a little bit as your car goes more than 50% over that rumble strip. So it's very tough to avoid that in especially that part of the racetrack in terms of incident points, as well as the exit of turn number 4, another one of the main danger zones for drivers such as these. Take a look at Jensen, for example, the Team Redwine machine. If you hit the gas too hard, you're hitting that outside wall he just passed on by. You can see just how close they're getting there, Connery.
Yeah, you really have to be very, very close with the margins here to get any sort of good lap time on the exits of these corners. Is again close to the wall, coming out of the next chicane there for Marcus Jensen. So, you know, they're leaving no time at all on the track, even in the practice session here. So just seeing where those limits are when you do get into qualifying, how far can you actually push things with the track limits here? And that's exactly what Marcus Jensen is trying to figure out right now. Still 0.2 of a second off of Lasse back here in the practice, but you can't really read into much, you know, in terms of that, considering, you know, with everyone running out there, the track condition is going to be a little bit different to the start of qualifying. So we may see a bit of a shake-up in terms of the order once we get that qualifying session started, but that's going to happen in around about 15 seconds time. So what are your expectations here for the first qualifying?
I think my expectations is, especially with the hot racetrack, get your best lap in on lap number 1. A lot of drivers, I expect, would be trying to keep their tires as cool as they can before they get to the run of 13 and 14. You don't want to end up burning up your equipment too early before you take that green flag, because if you end up even using an ounce bit more of tires or end up burning those tires and equipment too much, I think you might see those drivers, instead of, say, starting the top 10, outside the top 20 as you look at your practice results.
Yeah, let's say back top of the timing sheets. Mikael Gards, Martin Christiansen, it's down to P3. Marcus Jensen, P4, Rasmus Busk, and then Andreas Joachimsen, Stefan Moller, Alexander Ritson, Niklas Sondergaard, and Matthias Jensen, bringing things down to the top 10 practice times here. And you can see the rest of them up on screen for you now. So with the, you know, with a lot of the drivers that were running at the front of the field last time out, they seem to be seemingly having the pace here as well. So we'll just have to see if that remains true in this qualifying session. As we speak, drivers are starting to get out there and getting their out laps completed. The main thing, though, when it comes to the racing here is that track temperature is relatively hot, so it's going to be a bit of a struggle for grip out there.
Exactly. It's going to be difficult for these drivers to try and get onto the loud pedal, especially as the tires continue to wear down. Hence why a lot of these drivers are trying to go as slow as they can and try and keep their tires cool while making sure they get there in time to, well, record the lap. The track temp has dropped a touch here, Connery, though we should note 2 degrees from when we started the broadcast, and it's already looking like it's going down a slight touch, because with that partly cloudy skybox, all it takes is one cloud and there's the chance the temperature can drop a little bit more or less as these drivers continue to prepare to go around this circuit.
Yeah, we've got a couple of cars out there on Seika right now. There's this one, Martin Bittelsen. You've got Lasse back as well on the live pictures. So the 2 teammates working their way through the Pro and the Am, of course, as you have those 2 divisions here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Lasse back still on his outlap, it seems, right now. He's going to be heading himself down towards that hairpin, which is going to be one of the big overtaking opportunities here. Turn number 10. It's so inviting with the heavy braking zone and the tight radius corner. If you're even a couple of car lengths back, you can decide to sling it down the inside there and hope to get the position coming off the corner. But Lasse back now. He's on his way down the back straight towards that final chicane, which is still a very tricky portion of the racetrack. Again, it's another big braking zone and a very, very tight chicane indeed, with not a lot of room on exit, which is why you see so many drivers hit that wall on the outside there, the tyre barrier, the wall of champions.
I wouldn't be surprised to see drivers try and utilize that as a danger and passing zone at the same time, though, trying to get a run down the casino straight and trying to make the move on the right side to force the driver off the racing line. Wouldn't be surprised, though, if cars make collisions. Could see also some runs into turn 1 on the left-hander to try and make the move and try and then make the pass on the outside line as this race progresses. But take a look at Back's line on his first qualifying lap, trying to build as much speed as he can. Remember, he was very quick in the practice session, the 1:33.1s, to compare that pace. Yeah,
30 seconds as he heads his way through that particular section. That was the turn 6 and 7 chicane, up to turn 8 and turn 9 in just a couple of moments' time. Turn 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 seem to be very, very similar in terms of how they're approached here, as it's just basically mirror images of each other. It's a left-hander on the first one for 6 and 7. It's a right-hander for 8 and 9. But now Lasse back hard on the brakes into turn 10. Big wide line being taken. Make sure you can nail that exit speed, even getting close to the wall off that corner, so you can carry as much momentum as possible down the casino straight. And then it's quite a while on 100% throttle before you hit your next braking zone of turn 13 and turn 14. Got to be careful with those curves on the inside of both of these apexes here. Let's see how Lasse back is able to deal with it. takes the first one quite comfortably. The slightly heavy over the second one, but I don't think he'll be hurting as a result of that one. And now it's the run to the line for Lasse back. It's a 1:33.1, puts him to the top in terms of the provisional qualifying results here. He's only 4 thousandths of a second off of his fastest practice time. That's consistency.
Yeah, that time looked really strong on the racetrack. You've seen how comfortable he was with the line and how much confidence he carried out, especially in that final chicane. Thought he might have clipped the grass a touch in turn 8 and 9, but was able to get the time to count. But we're looking at Jensen right now. He's taking that tight radius through turn 10, a bit of a wider exit through turn 11. The question is going to be, can he build enough speed? Right now is in the same ballpark just about as what we've seen from a provisional pole sitter, but not as quick, about a couple tenths off.
Yeah, it is. So, well, for Marcus Jensen then, what sort of time does he do out of the final corner? He comes and across the line at 1:33.6 there, and that'll be good enough for him all the way up into P4. But I think he still has a couple of tenths of a second left in, and at least if the practice time is anything to go by, he went 2 tenths of a second faster in the previous session.
It's the matter of, can he get the lap time in, because as we've talked about, once those tires wear down, it's tough to get a good qualifying lap on the second one in terms of speed, because the grip's not as high. The tires are warmed up, the tire pressures have lifted up a touch, meaning you're going to have to deal with the car struggling a bit on the corner exit. Lasse back. He is now to second, though, because Martin Christensen bumped his way up to the top of the pylon with a 1:33.156 on his second attempt, actually.
Yeah, that's a lap and a half there for Martin Christensen, and Mikael Gaard now. He looks to try and get a lap in here as well. Coming through turn 10, he hasn't set a lap time just yet for that ProLeg React Esports Ferrari, but out of turn 10 he comes, stable in the traction zone for Mikael Gaard, as he's been one of the front runners, or is a driver that's certainly capable of getting himself to the front of the field. But is it going to be the case here in qualifying number 1? Comes through the final chicane, a bit of trail braking into there, not too much of an issue, able to get the traction off the corner as well, and it's going to be the run to the line for Mikael Gaard. Across the line he goes. What is it going to be in terms of lap time? It's a good one. It's a 1:33.302. It gets himself up to the second row of the grid.
Great starting position already. Curious to see if he can get a little bit more time out of that one, but right now, again, it's just about the confidence on the second lap. Just bouncing around a little bit. Madsen, meanwhile, he's looking to put in a time. The 0.82 machine had some decent runs in the opening round of the season. Already looking decent speed, around the same ballpark just about, but is currently projecting, it looks like, around the bottom 133s or the low 134s.
Yeah, that's sort of the benchmark that you're going for, as yeah, you see Nick Madsen working his way through the final sector now across the line, and let's see what sort of time. It's a 1:34.2, so not the greatest of laps there for Madsen. He gets put into P17, so still a mid-pack start for him. Meanwhile, while that was happening, Stefan Moller got himself up into a top 5 starting position here. So still a couple of drivers left out there to complete their second laps. One of them is Mikael Gaard, as he's working his way through. You see Lucas Hoffman as well coming across the line, although that lap time's not going to be representative there with the 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Maybe a bit of an outlap there for Hoffman, as Gaard has completely abandoned his second lap, so he won't be able to improve position.
Well, that was because he slammed the wall coming out of the final curb, was projected towards a fast time, and slammed that tire barrier you mentioned, and absolutely demolished his car on his second lap. But Johnny Nielsen, he's trying to put in an official lap attempt. His first lap did not count. Him and Lucas Hoffman, the only drivers in the session that have yet to put in qualifying times. Martin D. Christensen having potential issues with his brake dampeners.
Okay, that's a shame that. But now you see Nielsen out of the final corner, drive to the line for him. Is this lap going to be valid? Is it going to be good across the line? It's not quite there for Johnny Nielsen, as I believe That might have been an outlap there, unless I'm mistaken. I can't quite see.
That was his second lap. He did not get an official time recorded on either of them. The Simulcube sponsored machine. Gonna have to start at the back of the field to say the very least. Unfortunately for them, Lucas Hoffman also had the same situation, did not put an official time in. So everybody has put basically 2 or more laps up on the board.
Yeah, it looks like they have. As we've got Johnny Nielsen still out there on the circuit, and he's going to be one of the only drivers just logging laps here for all intents and purposes at the end of the session. Just 15 seconds before we get ourselves the gridding process started here for the second round of the Danish Esports Racing Championship, Race 3 and Race 4 of the season about to get started. Here's your starting grid then for Race 1 this evening. It's Martin Christiansen, pole position for Radicals Online. Lasse Bak lying up on the front row next to him. Mikael Gard in P3 with Mikael Sondergaard in P4, so it's an all Mikael P3, P4. P5 will go to Stefan Moller, Marcus Jensen, Team Redline P6. Rasmus Busk in P7 with Alexander Luritzen for Altus Esports in P8. Magnus Vassson in P9, Andreas Joachimsen P10, Matthias Woodshow in P11 with Fredrik Jorgensen in P12. Cycling things further back, he got Dali Jankovic P13 with Martin Bertelsen P14, Nikolai Silvest in P15, P16 will go to Christian Ho for the start of this race. Nick Madsen starts P17, Matthias Jensen 18, and Mikael Pedersen P19, Nikolai Jakobsen in P20, and then you cycle things towards the back of the field. It's Noah Watt and Ollie Oster in P21, P22, Jim Brinkback in P23, Jacob Witzborg in P24, and then at the very, very back it's Thomas Siersen, Christian Eriksson, and Jacob Popelvig in P27 to round out your 27 car grid. At least 27 qualifiers, but you have those 2 that did not set a lap time right at the back of the grid. Johnny Nielsen and Lucas Hoffman will have to start in those final 2 spots. But we're just about getting ready here. Drivers taking themselves to the starting grid. A minimum of 30 seconds to get ourselves started here. Just very quick, Justin. Turn 1, what's going to happen?
Pure carnage, potentially. It's going to be one of the main attrition spots, especially at the start. So many drivers are going to have to try and make sure they don't run into the car in front and hit the cloud pedal because they're all set to go.
Here we go. Race day 2 of the Danish Esports Racing Championship is underway. Martin Christiansen gets away well from pole position. Lasse Bak will try to challenge him in towards turn 1. Not going to happen. Big battle for P4 though between Mikael Sondergaard and Stefan Moller heading their way through, as there's been a bit of an incident towards the back of the field, I believe. Yep, there's cars off the racing circuit. Perhaps expected that to happen on lap 1, but nothing affecting the front runners of the field. They've gotten themselves single file very quickly here. I'm seeing no moves for position just yet, but important for Christiansen from pole position. He got away well and covered off the move from back that he was trying to make.
Yeah, but some of the drivers that started inside the top 10 had horrific starts. The drivers I was referring to were Bask and Wason, who made contact heading into turn 1, both of their cars with significant damage. The 26 of Wason with a little bit less. However, Bask, he has lost the draft with his right side damage. The rest of the cars outside of Ulster are still fighting along the front of the field, as you see.
Yep, you can see all still nose to tail heading their way through turn 10. Mikael Gard, he slams the wall on the exit of the corner, though. He's going to lose a bit of speed as a result of that. Perhaps, left-hand side damage, not ideal, but he seems to be okay for now. There's a car spun right at the back of the picture, though. That's going to be Mikael Pedersen, started sort of P19 here. Unfortunately for him, he's going to be cycled a little bit further back here. As you can see, your race leaders heading their way through to complete lap number 1. Lasse Bak as close as you like here to Martin Christiansen, heading themselves down into turn 1, but not feeling the early move just yet, as these top 2 have already slightly gapped P3 as Mikael Gard had an unfortunate altercation with the wall coming out of turn 10.
As mentioned, potential carnage, right? The top drivers, you wanted to be up at the front. you want to be able to get some clean space and get yourself a clean start. If you're, say, in the hornet's nest, just at around the edge of the top 10 on back, you risk damage. And now we've already seen a few of those drivers get collected overall with those 3 different incidents. But drivers like Moeller having a great start. He started top 5. He's right now trying to pull the slipstream on Sodergaard to try and do something to keep up with this lead group.
P1 through to 6 are exactly where they started in this race. So the very front of the field getting away well is just all the carnage happened behind them here, at least in those early stages. You can see Alexander Luritzen, he's up 1 position, Andreas Joachimsen up 2, Fredrik Jorgensen up 3 positions so far this race. So I guess a lot of the mid-pack runners have really benefited after the bottom end of the top 10 had a couple of issues in that particular start, but you can see the positions gained up on screens. You see Jorgensen, he's up 4 positions now, so he's had a very, very good start to this race. But like we saw in Monza, you know, you see some of these drivers gaining a lot of positions early on. It's just a matter of holding on to them once the race calms down a bit.
Yes, absolutely, because right now it's going to come down to, I think, partly braking zones and other situations. But drivers such as Woodshaw having to fight hard for position up on your screen and making some contact.
Oh, Woodshaw, yeah, and Christian Ho has been able to, well, he's spun that car around there, coming through the first sector. You can see, looking from up above, side by side, and yeah, a little bit of door rubbing and then sticking the nose in, perhaps where it shouldn't be there for Woodshaw, as Christian Ho gets tagged around that 0-2-1 car. Not going to be having a great day after that one, that is for sure. As you can see, all of these cars stacked up right now, coming through this is sort of mid-pack positions here. Everyone's still close, everyone is still in contention. This is the bottom end of the top 20 here that we're seeing, but they're still scrapping it out as ever.
Yeah, they're trying to fight for as many positions possible. You've already seen a lot of these drivers in this range have gone the positive way. But I want you to focus back on this lead. Back, I think, knows he's a little bit quicker. He's actually starting to blink the lights. He's been taking the braking zones a bit more deeper compared to Christensen. It's the matter of when does Back decide to say, you know what? I can't stay in your slipstream any longer. I want to make this pass. Or does he keep on pressurizing the red, white, and black machine right in front of him? Back still within a car length of the front as they come back down the front stretch. Just an estimated 13 laps to go, by the way, Connery. Not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time. These races are very short indeed, but look how Back just really tucks himself under the spoiler of the Ferrari ahead of him. You can see he's looking for a bit of an, just showing the nose, just keeping Martin Christensen on his toes here. And this is such a tough situation for Christensen to be in, just having to put up this sort of defense with Lasse Back big in your mirrors, and with a track where the rumors from, oh, Lasse Back, he's pulled off the circuit, coming up through the turn 6 and 7 chicane. What has happened there? That wasn't forced at all.
Have to take a quick look at this one if we can, because Back, remember, he's been trying to charge hard in the braking zones, carried a lot of speed, and it looked like the car just went straight heading into turn number 6's braking zone. Like he locked up and had a trouble steering the race car. It ends up taking him a moment to get back going. It ends up losing him all those positions you see on the lower left-hand corner. Yeah, it just looked like something going on in the braking zone, and ended up just losing him all the spots.
Yeah, it's put him down to P7, so losing around about 5 positions.
Remember, though, there is the chance you can get slowdowns. A lot of this racetrack with the amount of runoff areas and those rumble strips, if he had to serve a slowdown, he might have elected to take it there, because he did go a bit into the grass on the exit of turn number 4. That's dropped him all the way from the conversation for the battle for the lead all the way back to 6th position.
And that results in Martin Christensen now having a 9.5 of a second lead over Mikael Gard. So he's been really, really relishing in that moment, so to speak. You never want to see your competitors have troubles, but if it benefits you, then you might as well take it, as Christensen looks to try and run away at the front of this field, then maintaining the gap for now. But Mikael Gard has been selling some very quick lap times indeed. He was the fastest driver out there that last time, and in fact set the fastest lap of the race last time. So that number 21 still on the charge here and still looking to try and gain that race win.
That's even with that aero damage from the right side of the race car. So he's just inside the draft. The problem is, though, can he keep up in the technical corners? Because the draft, yes, it's a good equalizer. But if you struggle on corner exits from the tight chicanes and corners, such as 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 13 and 14, the draft's not going to help you. You'll end up struggling to keep up in the car in front of you. That time, not a good corner exit out of turn number 10. He got some luck, though, because Sodergaard took that same corner wide and bottled up him and Moller.
Yep, so things might just be on for P3 here. Moller, does he go one way then the other? He decides to commit around the outside for the first apex of the final chicane. Sondergaard on the inside, but he's able to maintain position. So that's just how one little error, one little spat can really boil over into something more. Moller with a good traction coming out of the final chicane. Might have another opportunity here to turn one. He was certainly tempted by the option, but remains behind for now. You have to remember that Marcus Jensen is also locked onto the back of this one, so Moller is in a bit of a Radicals Online sandwich right now.
Yeah, Jensen was actually the fastest out of those 3 cars last time by with the help of the draft and the help of the checkups. I think Jensen might be able to find something. It's just a matter of waiting for the proper moment. I think if he tries to get a run, say, to the casino straight, might be able to do something. The thing is, Muller's got to be thinking, how am I going to pass by this Radicals Online machine? Because I also feel like that yellow and blue car is faster than Sodergaard at the moment.
Yeah. Of course, Marcus Jensen, Team Redline, not Radicals Online. That was slightly mistaken, but the liveries are so similar, so you can understand the confusion. But Marcus Jensen, now, yeah, you quite rightfully mentioned he was the fastest of these 3 cars last time around. And he follows very closely there, coming through turn 10. Great overhead view of that particular battle. Jensen, though, he's going to be feeling the double toe of the cars ahead of him, so he's going to be really benefiting coming down these straights, and it's just keeping this pack very, very close together indeed. But it doesn't look like any move's going to happen into the chicane. But the chicane are where races can be won and lost. Positions can be gained and lost. If you mess it up, that's for certain. They can be so easily lost.
Absolutely, and we already nearly seen that a couple times already on this racetrack. It's going to be important that you keep the car on the circuit and don't have slowdowns, or do what Sodergaard just did. He bumped his way. Suspension slammed down on the entrance at turn number 2. He nearly lost that position because he took a flat entrance into the corner.
Yeah, just when I was talking about mistakes, losing new positions, almost one there in this battle. We can see we're riding on the nose right now of Moller. A great view as he tries to work on edging that gap down ever further. It's about 0.4 of a second between himself and Sondergaard at the moment, but you know, that's just the gap in the timing schemes. The gap, you know, in IRL sometimes can be a little bit more sketchy as we see them coming down through that next chicane, through 8 and 9. And it seems like Sondergaard's still relatively comfortable at the front of this, but like I said, he has had his couple of moments here. Into turn 10, goes very deep to Sondergaard. Just as I was praising him, he makes a slight mistake into the hairpin, and now Moller has the opportunity coming off the corner, gets his nose chopped off, but he didn't have the overlap required to be able to get by. He might have another opportunity here, this time into the chicane, decides again to go around the outside. Last time it wasn't successful. Is there a big commitment this time? Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Still a compromised line from Sondergaard, and Moller will get the better run out of the corner, so he's going to have another opportunity again in towards turn 1. This might be the better one, though. Has to go late on the brake still. Slight side-by-side into the corner as Sondergaard maybe pushed wide a little bit. You can see Moller still trying to work his way around, but Sondergaard still holding strong despite all of this pressure.
And Back has also joined the conversation in this battle as well. I have to wonder, though, in that 080 machine, if he's got something with the brake bias where it's not set properly for how he's attacking these corners. He might want to try and make an adjustment and quick, or else he's going to be potentially passed by not just one, but all 3 of the cars now bundling up behind him. as this pack continues to fall behind the rest of the leaders, already more than 2 seconds behind Miguel God.
Yeah, they're really starting to fall off now. All this battling hasn't done wonders for their lap times, that's for certain. So Mikael Gard is able to get away a little bit. Martin Christiansen has a gap, as a lead of about 1 second. Here's another little luck then into the hairpin for Moller. Big wide line being taken. There's the show, the bumper. There's the move out of the way. Sondergaard, he's still in this fight though. Still bringing it side by side. In the background though, Jensen has lost the position to Lasse back as he's on a charge back through the field after an earlier mistake. He's looking to try and shoot the gap in the middle, but there's not a car's width of space in there at all. Jensen's looking to try and gain the position back. 2 sets of side by side into the final chicane. Sondergaard on the outside trying to hold on. Look at this. You can't actually get any gap in between these drivers at all. A huge gaggle across the line. You can see the leaning between back and Sondergaard coming down into turn 1. You can see Jensen's looking to try and make it 3 wide as well. But this is brilliant battling as it continues on through this first sector. Back on the inside, able to gain the position. What a recovery drive so far from him, as Sondergaard will be the worst off in that particular fracas.
And Moore seeing that window open up, that struggle in turn 10, 3 laps in a row. He dived into the window, forced it open, and was able to now get 2 of the 3 cars I mentioned on by. Jensen, though, the biggest loser all of that, drops to the back of the field to this grouping. You also have Jorgensen and Joachimsen also joining the conversation to try and gain some positions as well. An absolutely massive group of race cars. They ended up losing 3 seconds in all of that carnage. By the way, Ritson, who was about to join this battle as well, ended up getting the black flag. He ended up serving it, you see in the backdrop, as they were side by side.
Yeah, so a bit of a penalty there. As we see there, Gard down the inside of Moller, and actually he'll be able to, Sondergaard might just be able to follow through on this. Nope, he wasn't able to capitalize on that. He's going to be losing a bit of speed coming down the back straight. Are we going to see another insane 2 sets of side by side into the chicane this time around? Certainly a non-zero chance. Moller getting him, trying to get himself back to the front. Oh, they shove each other coming down the casino straight. Equal on the brakes into the chicane. Back's able to edge his way ahead, but Moller has aced this exit so many times, but not this time around. He's got a slow down penalty. He has to let so many cars by. So unfortunate.
Yeah, rode the first chicane a bit too much on the inside along the green tarping, and that loses him all those positions and speed he was carrying. Unfortunate there for Moore. It was in that first part of the chicane on turn 13 that ended up triggering it a bit there. Moore having to serve it. You see he's trying to take that compromised line. Let's back in, but that cut inside. Left side wheels are already inside the rumble strips completely, in fact, as that triggers the slowdown and loses them all the positions.
Yeah, that's such a shame, because he was the driver that, apart from Lasse back, was on the charge and trying to get past, had a lot of speed, but step a foot out of line, like we said at the top of the show, and you can get yourself quite easily cycled to the back of the train. And it is still very much a train for that P3 and back right now. But the gaps have separated out just a little bit, so we can have a little bit of a rest here before maybe the action starts back up again. But, what a crazy couple of moments we've just had there. That was insane. You basically got 4 cars at one moment there in the area of a postage stamp.
Yeah, that was absolute craziness. All starting off with one driver seeing an opportunity, jumping in head first, and now in the end, though, the man who comes up on top is Lasse Back of all people. But Sodergaard, he's still in the 4th position, but the problem is, he's still got Jensen, who's going to be hungry to get that spot. He's got 2 more cars catching up, and don't forget the rest of the pack that is slowly creeping up. Sodergaard again struggling in the hard braking zones. That machine is just struggling when it has to hit those brakes.
Yeah, it hasn't been great for him. Maybe that's a little bit of a tweak he can make. Yes, these are fixed setups, I believe, but you can still change the brake bias in these cars, so maybe he just has to play around with that and see if he can get something going for him. Maybe try and counteract an issue he might be having with his pedals as well. So we'll just have to see how that one works out for him. But right now, it just has to deal with what he's been given. Lasser back at the front of the train, starting to pull away a little bit now. He's been able to get a gap of about 9.5 tenths of a second, get up to a second over Sondergaard here. So Back is basically showing the pace that he could have had when it comes to chasing down those cars at the front of the field, but he's made a very good recovery up into P3.
You're saying about Sondergaard, meanwhile, his car went straight. One of the main things, again, with fixed setups, you can adjust a couple things. Steering offset, steering ratio, and brake bias. That car ended up having no brakes, essentially, straight off into the runoff area, and he's all the way back to 5th position.
Yeah, it's. I think it's less of a brake bias issue now, and then maybe something, maybe just not quite right. With the middle pedal. So yeah, that's. You know, once or twice I can forgive. You can make an adjustment to, you know, try and sort that out. But when he's doing it on such a consistent occasion, into these heavy braking zones, I think it has to be a little bit more.
Yeah, something's got to be going on technically with that car, unfortunately, or on his end, because it's gotten worse and worse. In fact, looking at it, he went straight in that corner and lost all those positions. But now that's put him up for grabs for these two machines that are now within the draft to try and make a move. This is Jorgensen and Joachimsen. Don't forget, Moore is just behind this orange machine you're falling along with.
Yeah, so Moller hoping to recover at least a couple positions before this race is done. Looks like 4.5 laps to go here with 6 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. So certainly the time for Moller to try and get these cars past. We're riding on board with Jorgensen, though, who's currently very much in the middle of this pack right now. Cars ahead and cars behind, not going to be threatened or be threatening into the turn 10 hairpin this time around. But you can see how absolutely stacked up these cars are for basically P4 and back now.
Yeah, and that's again in part the struggles we've seen with Sodergaard and drivers trying to battle back and forth. The pace, though, has dropped off a little bit in these groupings of cars to the 134s to 135s. And I've noticed this, though, so far, Connor. I'm not sure if you noticed this, too. It's been kind of difficult to try and pass so far to get a run because these drivers happen to be safe on the corner exit and haven't gone to the massive runs I think we may have been expecting a little bit potentially at a circuit such as this.
Yeah, certainly a possibility there. As you know, we've seen a couple of great battles. We've seen a couple of crazy battles, but not a lot of easy passes being made by any of these drivers. They've really had to work for the positions that they have gained, and a lot of them have come as a result of mistakes of drivers ahead. Exactly.
It's a rhythm track for the most part. Even though it's a fast track, you need to keep a constant rhythm for basically, especially Sector 2 of this racetrack, to maintain speed across the track. That's where a lot of drivers lost some time in qualifying with the confidence under the braking, right? So these drivers, if they don't get a constant rhythm or have something that breaks up the rhythm, such as a major mistake in a braking zone or ending up overcorrecting at a corner or taking a slowdown penalty, it breaks that rhythm and makes it hard to recover. Sodergaard again, meanwhile, runs the corner wide in turn 10. Gets a good runoff, however, on the exit.
Yeah, he's having very big trouble with the braking zones, that's for certain. But, you know, is it something that could be fixed by race number 2? That's going to be the question that's going to be in his mind. As we are giving him the benefit of the doubt here. We're not saying it's driver skill related, but I think with the consistent basis he's having trouble. I think it's just going to be a problem that he's dealing with right now. But 3 laps to go as those guys head their way through. If you want a bit of an update as to how the front of the field is going, well, Martin Christiansen has really run away with things. You can see on the top 8 graphic that we have at the bottom of the screen, he's got 2.5 seconds over Mikael Gards. So despite Gards showing some decent pace here today, he's seemingly not able to match the level of Christiansen. That's it back though. What a recovery. He was cycled down into P7 after an early problem, and he's able to drag himself back up into a podium finishing position. Huge amount of points recovered there on the part of Lasse Bach in his championship fight.
Yeah, great recovery from the slowdown, dropping as low as 7th. He ended up getting some luck with the battle in front, but either way, before all that shuffled along with the side-by-side, about 2 or 3 roads deep, he had been one of the faster cars on the racetrack. Last time by, he was the fastest car by 3/10. It's just that slowdown lost him all the track position And in the end, he is now 7 seconds behind the race leaders. They're still fighting hard, though, now for P7 as Moore nearly said hello to Joachimsen's right rear.
Yeah, Moller looking aggressive into turn 10, but it doesn't result in anything off the corner. That's for certain, and he actually loses a tiny bit of time as a result of that. But, you know, with coming up to 2 laps remaining, something has to give in this particular train. I think at least one of these drivers is going to decide to go very aggressive here inside of these final 2 laps to try and gain position, because they've been like this, maintaining the status quo for a while. So with coming up to just under 3 minutes to go, I think the fireworks are going to start once again.
Absolutely, Joachimsen starting to drop back a little bit, in fact, compared to Jorgensen. I think Moore feels like he's a bit quicker. It's just the fact that he's not gotten a strong enough run to make the move quite yet, or pressurize the mistake of pouring the 0-1-7 to make the pass, for example. It's going to essentially take Joachimsen, him leaving the door open, I think, in turn 10, the way it's shaping, or getting a big run for Moore down the Casino Straight to be able to shuffle forward in for a position, because right now he is not in kind of the spot, despite the faster lines, especially in the chicanes, to make the said move. Bobble off the corner. Yeah,
just a little bit of lost speed, but not going to result in anything for now. Penultimate time into the turn 10 hairpin. No one's going to be searching for those moves, so it's all going to be setting up for the final lap here inside of this train for P4 and back. So it's going to be P8 is going to be the very rear of that train. As you can see them now heading themselves down the Casino Straight for the second to last time. Into the chicane they go. There might be a battle developing between Jensen and Sondergaard as well at the very front of this train. So white flag going to be out this time around. One more lap to go in this race. And, well, Sondergaard had a little bit of a look over Jensen that time around, so we have to look to the front and the back of this train to find the action.
Yeah, both of these potential spots could heat up. Sondergaard that time was in the same ballpark as Jensen. It's going to again take a bold move for him to try and make that pass. Meanwhile, bold moves might shake up for that battle for 7th position, because Moore has a run. He's sending it.
He's sending it down the inside at the left-hander, has to complete it around the outside of the right, and he's able to gain the speed off the corner, but Andreas Joachimsen is still close enough to be able to challenge. I'm seeing a slowdown at the front there, though that's a lapped car that might just get itself involved, but look at the pass back from Joachimsen. That is absolutely stellar, as now it's just one more sector to go. Moller has a slowdown penalty, which will put an end to that particular battle, but what a sequence there from both drivers. 15 seconds remaining as Martin Christiansen, he's heading himself down the back straight for what is going to be the final time here on into the braking zone for the final chicane. It's going to be a race 1 win for Martin Christiansen. We haven't talked about him all day apart from the very start, but he wins with a 2.5 second advantage over Mikael Gars. Try as he might, not able to keep hold of your race leader. Marcus Jensen will come home in P4, so he wins out in that battle at the very end over Sondergaard. Martin Busch-Bertelsen will gain the position over Stefan Moller, who had that slowdown penalty right at the end. So Moller, after looking for positions into P6, into P7, he ends up finishing in P9. So a bit greedy towards the end there, and he gets punished for it, gets cycled to the back of that battle. But what a drive from Martin Christiansen. Comfortable at the front of the field, dealt with the pressure well in those early laps. That Lasseback was piling onto the back of that Radicals Online Ferrari. But Lasseback slowdown penalty took him out of contention, and Christiansen simply didn't look back from that point forward.
Exactly, it came down to the mistakes and being able to keep the rhythm. Christiansen, he was nearly flawless in this race. Drivers like Back, Moore had slowdown penalties. It came down to that in the end, and Christiansen was able to keep his 4 tires within the white lines and finish with a strong run.
Here are your official race results for race 1 here this evening. Martin Christiansen wins by 2.7 seconds, so a little bit higher than 2.5 seconds over Mikael Gard. Last year back, though, what a recovery from P7. Well, he started P2, went back down to P7, back up into P3, though, for the number 57 driver. Marcus Jensen, a solid race from him, secures a P4 with Mikael Sondergaard in P5. Fredrik Jorgensen finishes in P6 here. He had a very good race. He started in P12, so that's a net gain of 6 positions. Andreas Joachim's in P7 as Martin Bilson P8 here today. Stefan Moller, what could have been at the end there, he has to finish in P9 though. Nikolai Silvest had a quiet race in the background, but he's able to get himself a top 10 finish. Looking further back, you got Nick Madsen in P11, Dali Jankovic P12, Jacob Pitsborg in P13. He had a fantastic race indeed, gaining 11 positions to finish in that position. But Matthias Jensen in P14, Matthias Woodshow in P15, Lucas Hoffman P16, Rasmus Busk 17th, Christian Eriksen 18th, Christian Ho P19 after that first lap incident, and Johnny Nielsen finishes just inside of the top 20. And then you see those drivers towards the back of the field that didn't really have great days. Marcus Vasterson, again, early issues, puts him down into P21. Jim Brinkback, P22. P23 goes to Pedersen as P24 goes to Popelvig. P25, Nikolaj Jakobsen in that position as Alexander Lauritsen after many problems, including a penalty. Unfortunately, it does not even finish the race. He finishes 8 laps down as Thomas Jessen, Noah Witt, and Ollie Oester meeting the same fate. But, you know, race 1 in the books now, Justin. That was a pretty decent race.
Yeah, some fun moments to start off the round today, especially with some of the battling. But 2 of the fastest drivers should be surprised. We talked about this a little bit. They were the top 2 drivers, Christensen and Back, in pre-qualifying for this week's round. They showed that speed in this opening race. The thing is, though, they're going to have to reset and get ready for potential different track conditions for race number 2.
Yeah, race 2 is going to be underway in just a couple of moments' time, but we got the qualifying for that race just after this short commercial break. Don't go away.
Vinderen af Danish Esport Racing Championship får chancen for at komme ud og køre i en ægte racerbil på Jyllandsringen. Men det er altså ikke hvilken som helst racerbil. Det er nemlig en Ferrari 488 Challenge-bil. Går du med drømme om at komme ud og prøve en ægte racerbil, så gå ind på esport-racing.eu og tilmeld dig DERC.
After a pretty frantic race 1, at least in terms of the top 10 positions, we head on to race 2 here of this weekend of the Danish Esports Racing Championship. Of course, it was Martin Christiansen that came away with the race win last time out, just around about 5 or 10 minutes ago. But these drivers right now getting themselves all prepped for the second qualifying session. The big topic here is, Justin, we thought last race was hot in terms of the track temperature. This one, 46 degrees Celsius right now.
That is 114 degrees Fahrenheit. That is blistering hot for these tires, and the wind is also picked up in a completely different direction. Right now it is facing to the right side doors of the drivers as they go down the Casino Straight. It's going to be difficult on that racetrack as it progresses, because if you were struggling for grip off the corners before, you're definitely going to struggle for it now in race number 2.
Yeah, you really are. So it's going to be tricky conditions now for these drivers in race 2. But the little warm-up session that we have here is just about to come to an end, so we can get ourselves qualifying 2 started here for race number 2. But there we go. We get things started. We get things set. Drivers imminently going to be on their outlaps, but I think one thing we do need to talk about here is those early issues that a lot of drivers fell foul to at the start of race 1. A couple of getting slowdown penalties, a couple getting spun around in turn 1. You simply can't afford to have that happen here with the race being so short. Lasse back though, able to pull off the good recovery regardless, but if he has a more comfortable start here to race 2 and is able to carry it through to the end, then Martin Christiansen certainly has to be scared.
Absolutely. Their pace difference about 2/10 in pre-qualifying. Back was actually faster with the help of the draft, and the fact he was much more confident with charging into the braking corners before that slowdown penalty. I wouldn't be surprised if it's back amongst the contenders in race number 2 as long as he gets the good run. Here's the main concern though, again, this hot racetrack temp could mean a lot more slippery circumstances, could make it harder to keep the traction. The difference in practice times already has gone up an additional second in lap times.
Yeah, that's how much the track temperature can really affect the lap times. Leonardo is saying is right now we can see drivers still on their outlaps. The first driver to set a time, if he's going to have it clean, is the 072 car, which is Matthias Jensen. He's the first driver that's been able to get himself out there, but you know, he's just about to start his flying lap. He's heading his way through the 13-14 chicane right now, right at the very end of the lap. But yeah, this is going to be a very tricky one. Like you said, with the track temperature being the way it is, not a lot of grip out there to say the least. It's just going to make this qualifying a lot more tricky, and it's already tricky enough considering how difficult it is to qualify here.
And one of the main things when it comes to fixed setups too, though, Connery, again, is when you have, say, an open setup race, you're able to make the adjustments, say tire pressures, car setup, suspension changes, to try and adapt to it. The difference is when you go into a fixed race, you don't adapt the car to your driving style or the track. You have to adapt the car to that said racetrack. So it makes it much more difficult for drivers, even the best of drivers, to get a proper rhythm if they can't do it fairly quickly in practice and make sure they hit their marks. If they don't hit their marks, especially in this hot track, there's a chance they slip and slide their way under braking even all the way to the runoff zones again in turn 10.
Yeah, so you do have to be very, very careful. We're riding on board currently with Lasse back, of course. Gained a lot of attention in qualifying 1, and seemingly the same is going to be this time around in qualifying number 2. But right now we are just waiting just around about 20 seconds more before we get ourselves the first set of lap times being set by our drivers out there. So just not a long time to wait at all before we see what the state of play is for these first qualifying laps. You can see Lasse back, he's heading his way down the back straight right now, but the first lap times are going to come in just a couple of seconds as Matthias Jensen heads his way across the line. He is going to actually not have his lap be valid there. That is unfortunate there for that particular driver. Lasse back though, hoping that his lap is valid as he runs to the line, a 1:34.2 there to get himself to the top of the timing sheets here provisionally in qualifying. And that's a big point there because we see that Martin Christiansen around about 0.3 of a second behind Lasse back here. 2.5 tenths of a second behind. So not able to match the driver of the 57, at least in these first flying laps.
Remember, though, with Christensen, he somehow turned up the speed knob a little bit more on the second lap. One of the few times we've seen that so far. But drivers like Ritson trying to make up for the black flag in race number 1, ended up retiring from the race afterwards. He just put up a 1:34.5. That is good enough to be in provisionally the top 5.
Yeah, that's a good lap there for Lauritsen, as qualifying 1 didn't really go his way in that just before the first race. He started well back through the field, but now he's able to get a solid lap time in, and hopefully for him going to be starting inside the top 5, maybe in the top 10 positions there, as right now half your fields have set themselves qualifying laps. So there's a couple of drivers that really did not like how things were going when it comes to that first lap. You can see Nick Madsen working his way around turn number 10 right now. You can see actually the gap at the front of the field is quite narrow. Back and Busk there, only 0.5 tenth of a second between those two guys, and we haven't really seen much out of Rasmus Busk so far this season, but it seems like race 2 of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is when he decides to strike.
And that's actually something good for Rasmus Busk, because he ended up getting in that incident, remember, on lap 1, turn 2 in race number 1. That University Isabella III machine had some speed. God also now looks like he's pulling off the racetrack. He has not put in a lap time yet, so it's going to take some time. These drivers only have 4 minutes and 34 seconds to make their way around the racetrack, such as Marcus Jensen. He's getting ready to take his first lap for Team Redline.
Yep, there we go. You can see that was an outlap. A very slow outlap indeed as well, just trying to keep those tire temperatures in check. But now he can go 100% all the way around the circuit, as Marcus Jensen looks to set himself a solid lap time here, as he had a pretty solid finish, in the previous race, finishing in P4, but maybe looking for a little bit more in this situation. A podium finish would be absolutely brilliant for Jensen here as part of Team Redline, but still, we can't be getting ahead of ourselves right now. We've seen some surprises in qualifying already, but it could just be one more here, either positive or negative for Marcus Jensen, that is for certain, with how difficult it is to get a lap set here in a clean fashion. But right now, we're seeing no big movers in terms of the qualifying standings right now. Everyone just focusing mostly on their second laps here.
I think Jensen actually scraped the wall on the exit of turn 9 just a touch with the right front fender. So there's a chance he might have to hope that the second lap is quick. We'll have to see if it's going to end up counting for Team Redline for this car, because it did just barely scrape the outside of the corner exit of 9.
Let's see if that invalidated his lap or not, as he looks to try and find the braking zone into that chicane. Jensen, of course, yet to set a lap time, and he abandons it coming out of the chicane, and well, has to take the toe back to pit lane, and he's going to be rather rapid in trying to get back out there with the time remaining. Mikael Gard, though, he starts his going to be final qualifying lap here, as he wasn't able to get one in at the very start of the session. It's going to be a bit of a rush, though, for these two coming to the end.
He might have been hoping that it would get a little bit more cooler. The track temp did drop 1 degree, so he might have been trying to wait for the optimal time on the racetrack to be able to set the laps, because there's the chance that it could have cooled down a bit more. It would have worked out. Instead, though, it's only about, would help maybe about 0.5 tenth of a second overall at the very most in track temperature difference. By the way, the reason we've seen Jensen have to back out of his lap time, remember, he ended up hitting that rumble strip so hard he crushed the front nose cone in.
Talk about taking gives heavy. If it crushes your nose cone, then that's going to be a pretty big problem indeed. But for Mikael Gard, as we see him out there on circuit for Pro Lagriat Esports, had a relatively okay race. It's already a relatively okay start to the season, shall we say, but still yet to make an absolutely huge impact here. P2, yes, in race 1, but wasn't on the pace at all as far as Martin Christensen was concerned. He just ran away at the front of the field. Hopefully things in this race look a little bit better for a race win for Mikael Gard. Through the final chicane then, very close to the wall of champions coming off the corner, and he runs to the line now across all of those grid spots. It's a 1:34.6 for Mikael Gard, and that's not great, at least as far as his standards go. He's down in P7 here to start this race.
Still okay track position, but remember, that's where the craziness started on the said start. But if you're drivers like Jensen or Bertelsen, you're hoping you have a clean lap right this moment, because we're under a minute left on the clock. And for Marcus Jensen especially, he is going to be one of the last cars on this racetrack trying to make it to the checker flag to hope they can set in a proper lap time, as back parks his cars. It looks like he was trying to prepare for tonight's race.
Yeah, so it's basically going to be Marcus Jensen still out there on circuit, and the 042, which is J-Matt Brinkback. So those are the only two cars left out there. Marcus Jensen, though, yet to set a qualifying time. Needs to absolutely nail this lap or risk starting towards the back.
I don't think he's got enough time, because
it
takes about 20 seconds or so at least to get from here. He's got 8 seconds. He's not going to be able to make it. He had to reset the car, remember, because he hit that rumble strip too hard in 13 and 14. Now he's going to have to start at the back because of it.
Oh, that is tragedy there for Marcus Jensen. Not able to get back to the start-finish line to complete his second qualifying lap. He'll start in P26. Speaking of the starting grid, though, Lasse back pole position this time around. Rasmus Busk then in P2. Martin Christiansen, your winner in the previous race. He starts in P3. 1.5 tenths of a second behind in terms of the time to your pole position setter. Mikael Sondergaard in P4 to start this race. Alexander Luritzen with decent qualifying, a top 5 start for him, as Andreas Jochimsen starts in P6. Mikael Gard P7 as Fredrik Jorgensen starts in P8 here for race number 2. Dali Jankovic starts P9 with Magnus Vastersen P10. Moller in P11. Watts in P12. As you cycle things down further, there we go. Madsen starts P13. Öster 14th. Hoffman 15th with Woodshow in P16. Looking back, you've got P17 going the way of Jim Brinkback, Nikolai Silvest P18, Thomas Jessen in P19, Pedersen starts P20, Nikolai Jacobsen in P21, Christian Eriksson P22, Christian Ho 23rd, Johnny Nielsen P24, Jacob Hoppelberg in P25. And then you have the drivers that did not set themselves qualifying times. Big names, in fact. Marcus Jensen, Matthias Jensen. You've got Jacob Fitzborg and Martin Bertelsen having to start at the very back of the starting grid here for race number 2. So, drivers getting themselves all set. We're still waiting for, I guess, 2 drivers to get themselves to the starting grid here. But those grid spots will be populated. Those red lights are going to show and going to turn to green in just a couple of moments' time to get race number 2 at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve started. It's a very short run down towards turn number 1, but Back has been able to get away well from pole position. Battle for P2 between Busk and Christiansen. They'll go side by side through the first sector, but it looks like Busk has been able to come out on top in that particular battle. Sondergaard solidifies position in P4. Luritzen gets away, remains in P5, but side by side between Jochimsen and Gard coming through the chicane, and Jochimsen able to squeak his way ahead of Gard in that situation. So no changes inside your top 7 positions here today. Dali Jankovic, though, in P8 has been able to gain one over Jorgensen.
This is a similar start to the second race at Monza to start the season, where it was a very clean start for the entire field.
Yeah, P2, Christiansen down the inside of Rasmus Busk, and Busk really didn't challenge it. He was very tentative on the brakes, but he's looking for the cutback move off the corner, so close to the concrete wall as Christiansen will give him the squeeze on the way down towards the hairpin. Here's the side-by-side between Sondergaard and Luritzen with 3 wide into turn 10 here. Who's going to come out on top of this one? Sondergaard looks like he has position on the inside. Busk He has to drop back, and Lauritsen's going to be the big loser in terms of that situation in towards turn 10. As look at this, you got Sondergaard and Busk actually having to duel for position down the casino straight. Not a lot of room to work with here for Busk. He will commit down the inside here, perhaps try and get this pass done through a very tight portion of the racetrack. Room given, room not given off the corner. Both of them hit the wall, the champions, and they let the whole entire train pass them on the left.
Yeah, that wasn't a smart move from Sondergaard, especially there. I would have just given up the ghost and said, you know what, you got the run. He was already approaching slowdown territory and just ends up running him to the wall, and now Rasmus having to take the tow truck because his car's demolished.
Yeah, as you can see, not a lot of room there coming on the exit of the final corner. Car on the inside has to track out somewhere, and that somewhere just so happens to be directly into the side of Rasmus Busk. So both of them get a huge amount of contact coming off the corner, and having an incident like that at the start of the race just means that everyone else is able to capitalize and file their way through. So drama already here at the start of race 2. And we're having a look at Alexander Lauritsen right now, because he's gained himself one position in and amongst things here. He's now looking to try and track down Andreas Jochimsen for P2, but as a result of that contact, Lasse back. He's got 2 seconds over the rest of the field. Where did that come from your race leader?
Yeah, 139.3 off the starting lights. Compare that to everybody else that were in the 145s on back. However, we already have at least 7 or more cars who have already had to pull into the garage area with their tow trucks, with how much attrition popped up in the second half of the lap, especially on that exit to the wall of champions. Lauritsen, though, he's looking pretty better so far in this race so far. Fairly clean so far start, as the Logic Gialtis Esports machine just has to, I think, keep nice and calm. His pace right now in the 135s, the leader in a 133 range. My goodness.
Wow, that's their back. He's really making up for the poor start in race 1 with an absolutely brilliant one. Stellar in race 2. It's a tale of 2 races here for Lasse back, as you see Lauritsen and Gard almost simultaneously hitting the wall there, coming out of turn number 4. That one's a bit of an interesting situation. Lauritsen really feeling threatened by Mikael Gard, and you can see why, as Gard really locks onto the back of that Altis Esports car with his Pro-led React Esports car. But now into the next braking zone they go. Of course, no opportunity here into this one. It's probably one of the more difficult portions of the track to try and get that pass done. And you can see these cars are starting to get a little bit squirrely off the corners as well. So that's going to be a bit of an interesting situation. Yes, these are GT3 cars and they have traction control, but when the track temperature is this hot, it's still going to be very difficult to try and find any grip.
Yeah, we're seeing that a little bit with some of the cars fishtailing a bit, trying to get on the gas. You kind of have to treat it like an egg to try and make sure you don't smash that said egg or don't hit it too hard. You have to be nice and gentle. Caress the gas pedal. And also caress the brake pedal to make sure you don't lock them up. Ritson looking very confident that corner exit compared to the 2 drivers behind him, able to gain about half a car length on Mikael Gard as well as Moeller.
Back still setting very quick lap times at the front of the field. A 1:34.2 that last time around. That's around about 7 or 8 tenths of a second faster than Mikael Gard's running, than Alexander Lauritsen's running right now. So Lasse back in that RS competition car. Just, you know, he's saying goodbye to the rest of the field. This is my racetrack. This is my race. And just see you guys later in the cooldown room, perhaps. But everything's still to play for, at least for P3 here, as Jochimsen hasn't been able to get away from Lauritsen. He had a pretty good lap that last time around to make that gap a little bit larger than it is right now by about 2 tenths of a second. But Lauritsen still inside the slipstream here, still feeling the effects of the tow. So keeping himself in contention, as these guys, at least in the first couple of laps. Oh, yeah, you can see Ashley Gard had a big moment there coming off the corner and allows Moller now to get himself involved and not going to be able to sling himself a side-by-side into turn 10 this time around. But again, it's another little mistake that really does put drivers in the back foot.
Yeah, lost him 3-4 car lengths alone, at least on Ritson, because Gard, we've seen there with that bit of that slip. Ended up hitting the rumble strips just a touch too hard, trying to go in from the quick right to the quick left. Just destabilized the car with these hot temperatures, and with that hot temp, even with that traction control, just took too long to get the grip. Meanwhile, Moore nearly bounced his way into the wall of champions. He rode the final chicane so hard.
Yeah, that was very, very close indeed, as he's managed to avoid it, so no damage to that number 104 car, but still. Oh, we have a driver spun though. That's Woodshow coming through the final chicane. Let's see exactly what has happened here. Is it help from anyone else? It is. Yep. So we'll actually see it's a battle between himself and Noah Watt coming through there. And it's another simple case of 2 into 1 in the chicane. Doesn't go most of the time. And Matthias Woodshow and Watt actually have a bit of a spin off the corner.
For Watt, he was the last car to qualify in. I think Watt thought he was going to be clear on the final part of the chicane. Instead, he ended up cutting across that front nose of the no-nonsense racing machine, and Woodshow getting the worst of it. Both those cars fairly clean, but they lost a lot of track position, especially to guys such as the battle for third.
Yeah, the battle for third is certainly on right now, as Joachimsen and Ulrichsen still stuck together, so Joachimsen hasn't been able to shake your previous champion here at all, so he's able to... the thing is, he still holds the track position here, which is perhaps all that you need, but he'd love to make things a little bit more comfortable and try and break that draft back to the Logitech G Altus Esports driver. But you see now coming through the chicane, both drivers taking those curbs quite meatily, but of course, you know, not so harshly that they damage their cars or gain themselves a slowdown penalty through there, which we have seen on multiple occasions.
Yeah, that time Joachimsen pushing the limit, but Ritson seems to be stronger on the harder braking zones, such as right there, turns 1 and 2. He was able to ride a little bit higher, get a better corner exit, diving in the corner. But compare that to, say, the chicane such as right here, that's where I think Joachimsen starts to have a bit of that advantage. He's carrying the car a little bit better in those sections of the racetrack and carrying a bit more speed while just testing the limits, while just barely avoiding grazing the wall to hold on to this position. You can see already a little bit visually as well with how hard Ritson goes into the braking zones.
Yeah, he's really trying to gain every single ounce of lap time out of that Ferrari right now, but still not able to get rid of Ritson as he just follows relatively closely. He's not like riding on his back bumper or anything, but he's still just letting him know that he's there, and any further mistake from Joachimsen, any slight one, and Ritson is there ready and waiting to take the position. So certainly one to keep an eye on when it comes to the next couple of laps here. I'm just looking down through the field to see if we have any very close battling. We have P14 and 15 between Brinkback and Vasterson right now. Those guys are looking pretty close as they head their way out of that turn 10 hairpin. Of course, Brinkback, he's gained himself a couple of positions already so far this race. He's up 3, but meanwhile, Vasterson has had a couple of problems early on, it seems, as he's lost 5, so he's on a bit of a recovery here.
Yeah, he was one of the cars early on that actually went a little bit wide and had a slowdown penalty on the opening lap of the race, and he just had an air slowdown now.
Ooh, yeah, that's not great there. Jim Brinkback, Vasterson, excuse me. It was actually, it was Brinkback that got himself the no, I am right.
No, that was
I should trust myself more. Vasterson did get the slowdown penalty off the corner in that car, so he's fallen behind a bit, and Bertelsen has been able to gain the position off of him. So sorry for the confusion there, but Vasterson, you know, we were just talking about the slowdown penalties coming through the chicane.
Yeah, he took it on the second part of the chicane this time, but again, that just shows again how hard these drivers need to push to maximize the time towards the wall of champions in that final chicane. If you take it too soft, that could be the difference of, say, half a second to a full second, or you'll have cars nearly run over the back end of you if you, say, try and drive around the chicanes. You have to carry that speed and carry that car with anger in that part of the racetrack to gain time. Ritson, though, he's in a decent spot to try and get the draft. He's got it about 3-4 miles an hour quicker down the straightaways with the slipstream.
Yeah, sensing for the move, showing the nose, but of course never going to commit down the inside there, especially when we still have around about 9 laps to go, but it's been a very good lap indeed here for Lauritsen. You can see actually Mikael Gard in the background trying to pull a little bit of a move down the straight there to try and keep Moller behind him. So two battling pairs here. Haven't gone directly side by side just yet, but you get the feeling that this might just have a bit of a spark in a couple of moments.
I think so too, as we're approaching the halfway point estimated of this race. I think at this point, you're just hoping for that one opening, that one opportunity to start pushing. Or if you're some of the drivers, you might be, say, thinking big picture, trying to save the tires just a touch to try and push for the final couple laps. I'm wondering if Moller might be thinking that regard, trying to set him up, not wanting to make the move too early and then lose the spot, because he's got the benefit you've seen there with a lot of space behind. And what if he gets this position done right, there's a chance he can get a couple more.
Yeah, a very big chance indeed. As you see, does seem to have quite a lot of pace behind the wheel of that car. But now you can see we're not having the same sort of train simulator 2020 going on right now for P4 right now as we had in the first race. It seems to just be a pair of battling cars, and that seems to be it here. 4 positions just inside of your top 10. Lauritsen though looking threatening on the way down into the chicane, and again showing the nose, trying to force Andreas Jochimsen into a mistake, but he's not falling for it so far.
Thing is, though, we actually had one of his better hard braking zone sections in the 13 and 14 all race, despite the inside line. He lost time trying to make that same move that previous lap. Now I think he's figured out a little bit. This is why limitations of where I need to brake to make sure I maintain the speed for sector 1 and 2 to try and make the move again. I think Lauritsen's got Jochimsen where he wants to. It's just a matter of making sure he's close enough to make the dive, but also making sure he doesn't collect that orange and black car.
Yeah, you have to really calculate these sorts of moves. As you ride on board with your previous champion, Lauritsen having a mixed start to the season here, but a P3 here in race 2. Certainly going to recover things somewhat as they head their way through that turn 8 and 9 chicane and getting themselves set up for the hairpin. But Jochimsen had a pretty decent run through that chicane, so he's not going to come under threat here by the time this big braking zone arrives. You can see a slightly wider line being taken there from the Altus Esports car, looking to gain that speed off the corner, and has a decent run at it. But I think it's just going to be a case of showing the nose again here into the chicane without actually having to go for the move, as we'll see if that is the case this time. You can see he's just half a lane out there, just showing it, but then diving back in the lane. And big amount of curb being taken there through the second apex. Car up on 2 wheels for a little bit longer than you perhaps would have wanted.
Yeah, that first chicane actually bumped him nearly completely sideways, but that second chicane actually helped the car stabilize a little bit. But again, that's what you need to risk. The suspension can potentially bounce around on you. You have to be able to hold on as that force feedback slams back down as hard as it can go in that section. By the way, P7 is starting to heat up, because Jorgensen has been reeled in by Sondergaard. It's down to 0.4 of a second for that spot on the racetrack, and they've also brought Jankovic with them as well.
Yeah, so battles towards the bottom end of the top 10 there, as we have had quite a few retirements in this race. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 retirements in this race, so a big probably unwanted rate of attrition there. There's a lot of drivers falling foul to issues early on in this race. That's just the way sometimes things work out here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. You can see Jorgensen still in position, holding on to position right now, despite the charging Sondergaard taking 0.2 of a second out of him that last time around, or rather 1.5 of a second is the more accurate figure. But either way, all those lap time deltas in the bottom right green, and that's what the driver following loves to see.
To correct you there on the DNFs at this point, we have seen Matthias Jensen and Christian Eriksen both find their way on the racetrack 7 laps down in 21st and 22nd. Okay. I think they're trying to prepare to at least try and finish the race, because right now they wouldn't be estimated to gain any positions if there was some attrition. But right now at this point, Sodegaard taking a little bit of a slower run this time for the spot, actually all the way back to 9th position after the slowdown.
Yeah, so another slowdown penalty in effect here for this one. So it doesn't seem like those are going to slow up, that's for certain. As right now, just having a bit of a look towards Joachimsen and Lauritsen. They're still very, very close here. But, you know, being close is one thing. Trying to get yourself side by side is certainly another one. As I will pull out the Murrayisms once again. As, you know, Lauritsen, he's really falling foul as to when it comes to how difficult it is to overtake here right now. Because pretty much any other racetrack where you have very big overtaking opportunities, he would have been down the inside and probably passed already. But since it's so difficult here to even attempt to try and get yourself side by side, it's just resulted in Joachimsen holding on to this position for now. But it's still a good defensive effort regardless. I'm not, you know, trying to downplay that, but the track certainly isn't helping Lauritsen's position here.
If anything, Joachimsen is actually the faster of the two right now because of that strength in Sector 2 for that 017. That the last 2 lap times definitely dictate that. But Lauritsen's just starting to slowly but surely lose that draft. And if anything, the slipstream is the main thing that is keeping him in this fight for position. Because right now he has constantly been losing time. It seems just a little touch in the technical corners in 6 and 7, 8 and 9 especially.
Yeah, so it does seem like Joachimsen is just faster in all of the right places here, and that's an important thing when it comes to even setting up for an overtake here, because Lauritsen is just sitting behind, just figuring out, I need to be faster in these sorts of portions of the racetrack, especially maybe coming through that middle sector where it is turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, turn 9, where if you get your line absolutely perfect, then you can gain a lot of time and then set up for a move down the inside or outside of turn 10. But Lauritsen hasn't been able to ace those portions of the racetrack just yet, and it seems like Joachimsen just has one over him in that particular instance.
Especially again, turn 9, you've seen it there again. Lauritsen not able to carry as much speed off the corner exit, in fact was a little bit more looser, and that in turn takes away the chance for turn 10. Again, there you've seen in turn 10, not a good run, in part because of a not a good run to the corner entry. And now he is just barely holding on to the slipstream. So Lauritsen might fall out of touch to Joachimsen in the next lap or two unless he can turn up the wick.
Yeah, you know, he's running out of time here, and Joachimsen is actually now edging out the gap. It seems. So it looks like that P3, as these laps go by, is looking more and more secure as far as Joachimsen is concerned. Gained about a couple of tenths of a second on that last lap. So, you know, starting to show a little bit of late race pace here is Joachimsen, and Lauritsen's not able to lock onto it. Meanwhile, you do have P5 and P6. That might just be a thing coming towards the end of this one, because Moller, he has been closing in and actually gained a huge amount on that last lap. It was a slight mistake from Mikael Gaard that's put him back in this position, and Moller could make something happen inside the final 5 minutes.
And remember, he was one of those drivers that were willing to fight for a position, try and even send it into turn 6. One of the more difficult sections in Sector 2, mind you, to try and make any sort of passes. Muller's got the pace. I think right now he's been able to save the tires a little bit more compared to Mikael Gaard. It's just, again, the matter of trying to time it up. I think he's waiting for the right moment. That right moment might come this lap because he's got the run and the corner exit.
Here we go. After a bit of a drought in terms of the battles, it might just be on here for a top 5 position between these two. Mikael Gaard on the defense from Stefan Moller. Moller decides to tuck back into the slipstream, back out of it to try and make a move happen into the final chicane. Absolutely neck and neck. Moller has about a half a car's length advantage here. They barge doors coming through the corner, but Moller's been able to gain the position. Is it a slowdown penalty, or is he giving the position in the back there? It's got through regardless.
That's a slowdown penalty for Moller. He got squeezed into the slowdown penalty, actually.
Ooh.
By that door-baiting contact, Mikael Gaard just completely squeezed him down. Mikael Gaard actually lifted off the gas a little bit to keep him within the range, but man, Muller's not going to be happy. He had a great chance, Now he's going to have maybe one more shot to try and make the pass. It's going to be hard, though, because he's barely holding onto the slipstream because of the slowdown.
Yeah, that's a big one there, as God making that ProLag React Esports car as wide as possible, coming down into the chicane, and Moller a little bit overcompensating for things off the exit of that previous corner there. He's going to lose a little bit more time as he almost hits the wall, but still 3 minutes and 28 seconds left remaining in this race, about 2.5 laps for these guys that you're seeing on your screen right now. Just to give you a little bit of an update for the battle for P3, Joachimsen still holding strong. He's edged that gap now up to a second over Lauritsen, so Lauritsen's not able to keep with him. It looks like this battle for P5 is probably going to be one of the more important battles that we'll have coming into those final couple of laps.
Yeah, big difference between a top 10 and a top 5 in potential morale, to say the very least. I think Muller has that pace. The problem is, again, that slowdown and the potential side damage just lost him a lot of that time he was able to gain up. It took him some mistakes as well from Gard to get up. That time mistake hitting the curbs a bit too hard on the left rear tire, bouncing him around and losing him another car length and a half, coming to 2 to go estimated laps.
Yeah, so here we go then. Stefan Moller, part of Team Brask, trying to close in on Mikael Gard for the end of this race. He's had one opportunity already. That didn't exactly work out, as he was forced out and netted a slowdown penalty on that previous lap. But still, some time, some laps to be able to get this one done, as it is the closest battle that you have out there on circuits right now, apart from maybe well, actually it is the closest battle that you have out there on circuit. So it's Mikael Gard, Stefan Moller, Andreas Joachimsen and Alexander Lauritsen that actually are the closest pairings on this circuit right now. So you can see the positions gained on the left-hand side of your screen. Back has leaded since the very start. He has a 7-second advantage at the front of the field. It's absolute dominance from back right now. But you can see further back, you see Sondergaard losing 5 positions right there. That is not an ideal race from the driver of the 080. But, you know, still a top 10 finish. You have to see the silver lining to the cloud.
Yeah, indeed. We also have drivers going as high as 13 positions. Bertelsen, remember, one of the drivers who didn't put in a qualifying lap. He's got himself up to the top half of the field into 16th place with the part of the Delta DNFs. As take a look at your screen, Muller's seen a chance. He's got to run.
Yeah, he had a big run out of turn 10. Might just have another one into turn 1 here, following tightly in that slipstream. Is it too far back to be able to sling one down the inside here? He certainly thinks it is, but we are on the final lap for these cars right now. It's going to be a big old battle here for that final top 5 spot. But who's going to come away with it, Gard or Moller? That is the big question. Right now, Lasse back at the front of the field. He has no problems at all. No one behind him to threaten him coming towards the end of this race. Same could not be said for Gard right now, as he's being hounded from behind. Moller trying to bring that Ferrari right up to the diffuser of the car ahead of him. But is it too little, too late here for Moller? He might have already had his one chance. Can he construct one for the end of the race? That is the big question. Needs a big run, but there we go. Gard has actually tagged the wall coming out of the chicane there. So Moller might just have himself a chance here into turn 10. Going to be no moves on. It'll have to be a big old dive in towards the final chicane. A tighter line off the corner there for Moller, as we see Lasse back heading his way through the final chicane. It's 2 race wins in the Danish Esports Racing Championship for Lasse back, but the battle is still on for P5. Here we go. Moller's going to decide to go for it. Outside line for the first part of the chicane. The Gard on the inside. Can he hold position? He does for the first apex, does for the second. No speed off the corner for Moller, and Gard is able to come across the line and take a P5 after a very stressful last couple of laps. Well driven there from Mikael Gard, but at the front of the field, Lasse back, he's absolutely untouchable.
Absolute domination. In fact, was about at least 0.2 of a second a lap. But there are still points in the line. Brinkback, he had a struggle in the first race. This time, he comes away with P number 13 with a decent run. 36 seconds back, but that team able to bounce back after some struggles for that organization. This is how that battle developed, though. As you look at Jakobsen, I should rather say, the MJ design machine was trying to get the run, and you can see things were starting to really develop for that battle for position heading towards the final chicane. He tries to send it, licks the stamp. The stamp ends up going to the floor instead. He gets the slowdown, loses 2 spots at the checkered.
That's not going to be valid as he heads his way across the line on the replay. Oh, that's an interesting place to, brake very hard, though. Almost actually collects the car behind, but still able to get himself across the line, albeit losing those couple of spots. But with race 2 over and done with, here are your official race results. Lasse Bak wins his 2nd race of the season by quite a comfortable margin indeed, 7.4 seconds back to Martin Christiansen, who's had a very decent day. P1 in race 1, P2 in race 2. Can't really complain about that. Andreas Jochimsen holds on to the final podium spot after Lauritsen tried as he might try and get past, but not going to happen, unfortunately. Mikkel Gard and Stefan Moller had a fantastic battle coming to the line, but Gard is able to hold on to a top 5 finish. Fredrik Jorgensen finishes P7 with Dali Jankovic in P8. Mikkel Sondergaard, not the greatest of races from him, dropping a couple of positions from his qualifying, but still comes home with a top 10 finish, as Nick Madsen will end up in that 10th place. But Justin, you got the rundown for the next couple.
Yes, Ole Ulster, we didn't even talk about him too much in race number 2. He DNF'd in race 1. He finished 11th, with Magnus Weissen finishing in 12th. Brinkback finished 13th, Guan in 14th. Jakobsen, we've seen there the slowdown in 15th. Bertelsen recovered from not qualifying to a 16th place finish. Christian Hogue finishing in 17th, Nielsen 18th, and then Popovic quietly in 19th. Woodshow, the last driver on the lead lap here today, Connery, round out the top 20. Everybody else 7 laps down or more.
Yeah, it's been a pretty poor rate of attrition here for race 2. Matthias Jensen P21, Christian Eriksson P22, Busk in P23 after a front row start there. So unfortunate for him. But Thomas Hirsen P24, Fitzwalk P25, Hoffman P26, Sylvester 27, Pedersen 28, and Marcus Jensen in that final 29th spot. So after not getting a lap in qualifying, he falls foul to a big wreck early on, so ends up finishing dead last here today. But before we get ourselves to the post-race show here, we're just going to go for a bit of a quick break before we are back with the interviews. Don't go away.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Round 2 of the Danish Esports Racing Championship has come to an end. Martin Christiansen and Lasse Bak taking the race wins here today. And you can see the race results of race 2 up on screen for you now. This is the post-race show. I'm Connery Maddock. I'm joined by Justin Prince as ever. But, that second race was a little bit more relaxing, at least in terms of the front of the field competition, than race 1, that's for certain.
Yes, absolutely. And in the end, Bak having a clean start, ended up having no slowdowns, and in the end, just taking advantage with the clean air and just pulling away and fast over Christensen. So you have to give credit to him. He wasn't as quick, but he was the second fastest car on the track consistently in that second race, and the fastest in the end after the penalties in race number 1. A heck of an event today for both of those drivers.
Yeah, a brilliant event indeed, but we'll get ourselves a bit of an interview here. Martin Christiansen comes home P1 in race 1 and P2 in race 2, so a decent day all round. But Justin, you have the questioning.
Thank you very much, Martin Christensen, joining us here. Martin, how are you feeling after a strong day today in round number 2? A first place finish in race 1, a second place finish in race number 2.
Yeah, hey guys. I'm feeling mega fine. Like, it was almost the perfect day. Good points haul. Good race 1. Victory, so you can't be like too not satisfied with that. Race 2, like, just congratulations to Lasse. He was just unbeatable in that race, and me hitting the wall a couple of times didn't help either. So yeah.
You mentioned her tapping the wall a couple times. What else did you feel you needed to do for the second round to try and maintain the speed to keep up with Lasse back in the clean air?
Yeah, it's tough because for the most part we've been practicing in colder conditions. So ESR, like, putting these 2 races in ultra hot conditions made it really difficult. So it was, you had to adjust really quickly, and we only had 30 minutes of practice going into race 1. But I felt a bit more comfortable in second race in race 2. But I could see Lasse had been practicing much more in these conditions than we had. So yeah, I just couldn't match him on raw speed in that second race.
Or some of the things you had to adjust upon as that went on? You mentioned the temperatures, of course, for example. What else did you have to try and adjust in terms of racing line, throttle points, braking and entry zones? What else were some of the tweaks you made as the races progressed along with the practice?
Yeah, of course, like, it changed the whole perspective of driving in hotter conditions, because you have to be so much more careful on your inputs. But also, like, the tire wear was massive. So you could push really hard for the first couple of laps, but then you could really feel the tire drop off. And like, I hadn't tried that in the practice we did. Like, the tires just could keep going, but they couldn't here. So it was really difficult on those last laps.
As you mentioned, though, a great points day overall with the win as well as the second place finish. Your thoughts heading into round number 3 in next month in mid-December?
Yeah, we just have to keep the momentum up, really. Right, this is my first season in the Danish Esport Racing Championship, so it's all really new to me. I feel I'm progressing each round, so like, just keep up the good work.
Is there anyone you want to thank before you let you get going and celebrate with your team on a good job done today?
Yeah, of course. A big massive thanks to all of Radical's sponsors, and the new sponsor for this series, Sim Performance, and then also a big shout out to Forte Kubica and Frederick Kjelgaard, who helped massive with practice for this event.
Congratulations to the strong day, Martin. Great
Thanks,
day.
Take care.
You two, that is Martin Christensen coming away first in race number 1, second in race number 2. A strong day for the 068 machine. A strong points day, to say the very least, near max points.
Yeah, very, very good points haul, like he said in that interview. It's probably one of the more ideal races that you'll see. The only thing better is getting both race wins, so it's still a great achievement that he's been able to get here. But we do have another driver waiting to get themselves in. That will be Andreas Joachimsen, who comes home in P3 here in race 2 after starting in P6. And, well, Andreas, you had Alexander Luritzen all over the back of you throughout that entire race, but you were able to hold on. How did you do it?
Yeah, I struggled a little bit in the first half of the race. And then it was like I found something. Dialed a bit around with the braking with the brake bias. Yeah, was having Alexander right behind me. But I knew it was going to be difficult for him to take me, because around here it's
Yeah,
fine.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, it's really difficult to find a spot around here to take. So I was, even though he was quite close to me, I was still quite confident, even though he was faster half of the race. So
Yeah, it seems like you had a slight edge, especially coming to the second half of the race there in that particular battle. But you mentioned that it's very difficult to overtake here, and we saw that as a trend throughout the field. Drivers not really able to get past each other without the driver in front making a mistake. So having that in mind, did you feel any pressure at all in this race, considering that if you make a slight mistake anywhere, then Lurichen's gonna have a little bit of a go?
Yeah, of course. I knew I had to stay clean and stay fast. Otherwise, Alexander was there. So, of course, there's some kind of pressure on there. It's like you're really looking that much in the mirrors. I'm trying to look forward. Also, when I saw, I don't know what happened to Martin. I think he got slow down. And when he got that slowdown or slowed him down, I focused more on getting away. And of course, in the first half of the race, it's just about I tried to stay ahead of Alexander and make a gap, not only to him but also to the guy behind us. So and that worked out pretty well. So yeah, that's how I managed the race, or how I managed.
Yeah, it's a podium finish for you here in race 2 at least. Are you looking? Are you feeling very comfortable as far as how this season has gone so far? Are you in a good spot in your mind?
Yeah, it has been a little bit up and down, but generally it's okay. Other conditions is getting a little bit there, I think.
Mhm.
I had hoped for a cold race today, but it is. I'm happy with getting away.
Yeah, sometimes things just don't go your way in terms of the weather conditions. But before we bring things to an end here, Andreas, is there anyone you want to thank before we wrap things up?
Yeah, of course. I want to say thanks to Esport, and all the sponsors on the team. Yeah. So and without their help, I would have been a bit slower. So yeah. So yeah, shout out to them.
Oh, there we go. Andreas Jochimsen comes home in P3 in race number 2 here. Very solid finish indeed there, Justin. As, I was going to say, looking forward to next week with X track. We don't know what the track is going to be, so it's kind of pointless going down that particular route. But some drivers having a strong start to the season here. Jochimsen saying it's been relatively okay, being up and down, but hopefully for him over the next couple of rounds, things start to stabilize out a bit.
Indeed, it's going to be interesting to see again how they do in the upcoming rounds. There are still plenty of races and race tracks still on that rotation. You've got the tracks such as Suzuka, Spa, Francorchamps, Silverstone, Bathurst, the Circuit of Americas, and more so that are still up on that rotation. It's going to be interesting to see what happens on December the 18th.
Oh, that's going to be the end of the broadcast then. I've been Connery Maddock. That's been Justin Prince. We've had an absolutely brilliant couple of races here, but still yet more in terms of how this season is going to go. We don't know where we're going for the next round of the Danish Esports Racing Championship, but for sure it'll be the exciting racing that we've become used to here in this series. Farvel for nu here in the Danish Esports Racing Championship. We'll see you guys next time.